The financial regulator is warning people against taking advice from financial influencers or so-called Finfluencers on social media. The Australian Securities and Investments Commission says it's issued warnings to 4 people it suspects of giving unlawful advice, and it's also reviewing the licensees of a further 15 Finfluencers amid a global crackdown. Alan Kirkland is the Commissioner of the watchdog ASIC, and he's with me in the studio. Very good to see you, Alan. So what sort of financial advice are these Finfluencers handing out?
Well, we've seen a number of examples of Finfluencers encouraging people to invest their money in things like shares, leveraged derivatives, exchange-traded funds, and that's fine if they're appropriately licensed and qualified. Our concern is that we're seeing some examples where people aren't licensed, and that is, quite frankly, against Australian law. That's why we've warned them, and it's part of a global action involving another 16 regulators across the globe.
Okay, and there's evidence that followers are taking this advice and getting into trouble.
Well, it can go terribly wrong. If you're encouraged to invest a significant amount of your money in something that's not right for you, or might at worst be a scam, then you can lose that money. And when that's people's retirement savings, we're even more concerned. So that's why we're cracking down on the Finfluencers that may be involved in this, but also warning the public about the risks of taking major financial decisions based on advice from social media.
Who's doing this in the main? Is it young people?
Oh, it's people of all ages, but we do tend to see Finfluencers targeting younger people more, because we know from our research that younger people are more inclined to see social media as a source of information on financial decisions, and they're more inclined to trust Finfluencers on financial issues. And look, that's fine, but we're just warning people about the risks and trying to make sure that people aren't giving out that advice unlicensed.
Right, so what are the laws in this space, Alan?
Well, if you give financial advice in Australia, you need to be licensed or authorised by somebody who's got a licence. And giving financial advice is making a recommendation about a financial product or giving an opinion on a particular product or type of product. If you're doing that, that is advice. You've got to be licensed, and that's what we're cracking down on, where people are doing it without a licence.
Are there Finfluencers from overseas who are reaching out to Australian audiences? Does that bring its own set of problems?
We do see Finfluencers across the globe operating across national borders, and sometimes indeed it's hard for us to tell exactly where somebody is working from. That doesn't stop us reaching out and warning them, but it also highlights why it's so important that we're acting on this as a global issue. It's the second year in a row that regulators across the globe have coordinated a week of action on this sort of activity, because we know that the harm crosses national borders.
So it's the second year in a row. What happened last year?
So last year in Australia, we reached out and gave formal warning notices to 18 Finfluencers, and most of them have made changes. They've either stopped providing the financial advice that was of concern to us, or they've taken steps to get appropriately licensed or authorised. And that's important, because Finfluencing itself isn't against the law, but it is against the law if you're giving financial advice without the appropriate controls in place.
So Finfluencers do this because they get money from the companies they're promoting? Is that why they do it?
Oh, that's where the incentive is, and if you're seeing somebody online who's got a large following, it's very likely that that's because that they're doing that as a business. That's their personal business. They get income in various ways from the businesses and investments that they promote, and that's a bit of a signal in itself that they may not have your best interests at heart.
Right, so that's one red flag. What are some of the others?
Oh, we tend to see promises of better than average returns. There's often a lot of the personality of the influencer involved. So they've got big personalities. They talk about their lavish lifestyles. They post photos and videos of them on the other side of the world in luxury cars. They're red flags. And the other things they often try and do is get you to join private groups or courses where they can sort of get you to pay some money, and then they get you off the main sort of public part of social media into a private group where they'll then really put the hard sell on you.
Is the popularity of Finfluencers such because there's a gap in the market? There's simply not enough financial advice for that demographic out there?
We haven't seen anything that indicates there's a link between the numbers of financial advisors and use of Finfluencers. I think it's natural with the growth of social media and the fact that young people use it so much that they will look to social media as a source of information. That in itself is not a problem, but we are saying to people that you should never make a major investment decision based on a recommendation from somebody online. You should always sense check their advice against reliable sources before making that sort of decision.
And if these warnings don't work, are there more severe penalties that you can impose?
We will take serious action if that's warranted. In the most extreme cases, that's led to one person being imprisoned and another person facing permanent injunctions from being involved in financial services in Australia. So Finfluencers are on notice from ASIC.